Something wild was about to go down. A single question, asked again and again, pushed Karoline Leavitt to her breaking point. And what happened next left everyone in the room speechless. This wasn't just another day at work. It was a moment that would spark debates, flood the internet, and keep people talking for days. Want to know what you think about it? Drop a comment below, and let's get into it. The briefing room in Washington, D.C. was buzzing. Every seat was taken, and a line of cameras stretched across the back wall, all focused on the woman at the podium. Karoline Leavitt stood tall, her voice steady as she greeted the crowd. Good afternoon, folks. Let's jump right in. She was used to tough days. As a press secretary, she'd faced plenty of tricky questions before. But today felt heavier, like something big was hiding just under the surface, waiting to explode. Reporters raised their hands fast, eager to get their moment. Karoline nodded to a guy from a big news channel. He asked about the latest tax plan, and she gave a clear, practiced answer. No sweat. Then another reporter chimed in about school changes, and Karoline handled it just as smoothly. She knew how to keep things on track, stay calm, stick to the point, and move forward. That's how she always did it. But then, a voice sliced through the chatter. Ms. Leavitt, how about we talk about what really matters? It was Emily, a reporter with a reputation. She sat near the front, her sharp eyes locked on Karoline, a little grin tugging at her lips. Emily wasn't here to play nice. She loved stirring the pot, digging for drama. Karoline didn't flinch. Go ahead, she said, her tone cool and even. Emily jumped in quick. Are these policies meant to hold certain communities back? The numbers don't lie. Her words hit the air like a spark. Karoline raised a hand, calm as ever. I've covered this already. We're working for everyone here, no exceptions. If you've got something on today's topic, I'm all ears. A few people in the room whispered, but Emily wasn't ready to let it go. You didn't really answer, though. Emily shot back, leaning closer. Just say yes or no. Are these rules hurting people who need help most? The room got quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind where you could feel something building, like a storm about to break. Karoline took a slow breath. I'm sticking to what we're here for. Next question. She nodded to another reporter, trying to keep things moving. Except Emily wasn't done. Why can't you just give a straight answer? She pressed, her voice louder now. Heads turned. Some reporters scribbled notes. Others just watched, wide-eyed. This wasn't a normal back and forth anymore. It was turning into something else. Something bigger. Karoline's face stayed steady, but you could see a tiny spark of frustration in her eyes. She wasn't new to this game, but Emily was testing her like never before. I'm not here to waste time, Karoline said, her words firm. If you've got something fresh, ask it. If not, I'm giving someone else a turn. Emily smirked. Okay, new question. Why is this team so scared of being open? A couple of gasps slipped out from the crowd. The cameras zoomed in, catching every second. This was getting juicy, and everyone knew it. Karoline blinked once, slow and deliberate. Her hands rested on the podium, and she gave a small smile. Not a friendly one, but the kind that says, I know what you're up to. Openness. That's what we're all about, she said. But this is you putting on a show. Emily's grin faded just a bit. The room felt tighter, like the air itself was holding its breath. Another reporter tried to jump in. Karoline, if I could, but Emily cut him off. So you're brushing off real worries like they're nothing? She snapped. The cameras swung between them. This wasn't about facts anymore. It was a showdown. And it was about to get even wilder. The room was a pressure cooker now, and everyone could feel it. Emily wasn't letting up. She smelled a story, and she was ready to push until it blew up. The people deserve real answers, not dodges, she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the tension. Karoline stood her ground, hands steady on the podium. I've given you an answer, she replied, calm but firm. If you want to talk about today's news, I'm here. If not, we're moving on. For a second, it seemed like things might cool off. A guy in the back raised his hand, ready to ask something new. But Emily wasn't having it. Why is it so tough to just say it plain? She fired back, leaning forward in her chair. Her pen tapped fast against her notebook, like a countdown to chaos. The other reporters froze. Some looked annoyed, others curious. This was turning into a scene nobody expected. Karoline's jaw tightened, just for a moment. She'd dealt with pushy reporters before, but Emily was on a mission. This wasn't about getting facts. It was about stealing the spotlight. I'm not dodging, Karoline said, her voice steady as steel. You're trying to twist this into something it's not. Next question. She pointed to the back, but Emily jumped in again. So you're saying real concerns don't matter? The air got thick. A few reporters scribbled fast, sensing a headline brewing. Others shifted in their seats, unsure where this was headed. One older guy, a news veteran, leaned over to his buddy and muttered, "This isn't reporting, it's a stunt." But Emily didn't care. She knew every word was being recorded, every glare caught on camera. This was her shot at going big, and she wasn't backing down. Karoline took a slow breath, her eyes scanning the room. She could see it, the way some avoided her gaze, the way others gripped their pens like they were watching a train wreck. "I'll say it one more time," she said, her tone cutting through the noise. "Ask me something real, and I'll answer. But I'm not here for your games." Emily laughed, short and dry. "Games? I'm just doing my job. Isn't that what a free press does?" The crowd stirred. A couple of people whispered to each other, heads tilting toward Emily. Was she right? Or was she crossing a line? Karoline didn't blink. "A free press digs for truth," she said. "You're digging for drama." That hit hard. Emily's smirk slipped, just for a second, before she fired back. "So you're shutting down tough questions because you don't like them?" It was a trap, and Karoline knew it. Answer too soft, and she'd look weak. Push too hard, and she'd feed the fire. The cameras zoomed in closer, catching the tiny twitch in her expression. She straightened up, stepping back from the podium a bit. "This isn't about me," she said, her voice cool and clear. "It's about keeping this focused. You want a headline? You've got it. But I'm done with this loop." Emily crossed her arms, her grin creeping back. "Right, because dodging is so much better than facing the truth." The room went silent, dead silent. Not the kind where things settle, but the kind where everyone's waiting for the next move. Karoline glanced toward the side, her eyes landing on a security guard by the door. She didn't say a word, but that look? It said everything. People noticed. Emily noticed. The vibe shifted fast. "You're really doing this?" Emily asked, her tone dropping low, daring Karoline to follow through. The guard took a step forward, slow and quiet, his face blank. Emily had a choice now, back off or go all in. She picked all in. "This is unreal," she muttered, loud enough for the mics to catch. Then, bolder, "Guess this is what happens when you ask too much, huh?" Karoline stayed still, her face like stone. "You can stay and listen," she said. "But I'm not feeding this anymore." Emily shook her head, grabbing her notebook. She stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "This is a joke," she said under her breath, then louder for the cameras. "You can push me out, but you can't hide what's real." With that, she turned and marched toward the door, every step echoing in the stunned silence. The door clicked shut behind Emily, and the silence hit like a wave. Nobody moved. The reporters sat there, some staring at their notebooks, others sneaking glances at Karoline. The cameras kept rolling, soaking up every second of the awkward hush. Up at the podium, Karoline adjusted her stance, her face calm, but her mind racing. She knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. This was just the spark, the fire was coming. A voice broke through from the back. "Karoline, was that the right call?" It was a younger reporter, his tone careful but curious. She turned to him, her expression steady. "It had to be done," she said simply. "We're here to talk, not to argue in circles." Another reporter jumped in, a woman with glasses. "Won't this blow up in your face?" Karoline didn't miss a beat. "Maybe, but I'm not here to let one person derail everything." The room started to buzz again. Hands went up, slower this time, like people were testing the waters. Karoline pointed to a guy in a gray suit, and the press conference rolled on. But the energy was different now, edgy, electric. Everyone knew the real action wasn't in the room anymore. It was outside, online, where Emily's exit was already lighting up screens everywhere. As Karoline wrapped up and stepped away from the podium, her phone started buzzing nonstop. She didn't even look at it, just kept walking, her heels clicking down the hall toward her office. One of her aides, a guy named Matt, caught up fast, his eyes glued to his screen. "It's trending already," he said, his voice tight. "Press shutdown is picking up. People are talking." Karoline let out a quick breath through her nose. "Of course they are." Matt hesitated, scrolling fast. "Some news sites are keeping it straight, just saying what went down. But others? They're spinning it hard. Leavitt crushes free speech." Reporter booted for asking too much. She stopped walking, her lips pressing into a thin line. Asking too much? She was fishing for a fight, not facts. Matt nodded, still scrolling. Doesn't matter what's true. That's not what's sticking. Karoline pushed open her office door and leaned against her desk, arms crossed. What's our side saying? She asked. Matt glanced up. They're with you. The conservative crowd's calling it a win. Say you kept it pro. Big names are backing you up already. She nodded, but her eyes narrowed. And the White House? They're staying quiet, Matt said. Not throwing you under the bus, but not cheering either. Karoline smirked, shaking her head. That wasn't a surprise. She turned to the window, peering down at the street. Reporters were piling up outside, cameras ready, waiting for her to show her face. The storm was growing, and she could feel it. What about Emily? Karoline asked, her voice low. Matt tapped his phone. She's all in. Did a quick TV spot already, saying it's a dark day for journalists. She's got slots booked on every big channel tonight. Karoline tilted her head back, staring at the ceiling for a second. She planned this, she muttered. And we handed it to her on a platter. Matt bit his lip, unsure what to say. So what's our move? Karoline didn't answer right away. She watched the crowd outside swell. A news van rolled up, then another. The chaos was spreading fast. She tapped her fingers on the desk, thinking, stay quiet and let it burn out, or fight back before the story got cemented. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't going away easy. Let's get ahead of it, she said finally. Put out the whole video, the raw, unedited clip. Show exactly what happened. Matt's eyes lit up. Smart. That way people see you gave her chances, over and over, before it went there. Karoline nodded. Yeah, let's not look like we're hiding. Just put it out there and let them judge. Matt and another aide, Sarah, got to work fast, pulling the footage together. Karoline watched them, her mind already jumping ahead. Emily wanted a big moment, but Karoline wasn't about to let her control the whole show. The video could flip this, or at least give people something real to chew on. Outside, the noise grew louder, and she knew the clock was ticking. The unedited video hit the internet like a lightning bolt. Within an hour, Karoline's team posted it online. No fancy cuts, no dramatic music, just the raw truth of what went down. The title was short and sharp. See it all. Karoline Leavitt and reporter face-off. Views piled up fast, thousands in minutes. Comments started pouring in, some cheering Karoline on, others tearing her apart. She sat back in her office chair, watching the numbers climb, knowing this was only the beginning. Her phone buzzed again. A text from a friend in the media popped up. This could turn it around. Smart play. Karoline wasn't so sure. She knew the clip showed the whole story, how she stayed cool, how Emily kept pushing. But people don't always care about facts. They love a good spin. And Emily was already out there, working hard to twist it her way. Karoline clicked on a news channel's live stream. There was Emily, sitting in a studio, her face serious but her eyes gleaming. I was just doing my job, she told the host. I asked the hard questions, and they kicked me out for it. That's not how this should work. The host nodded, all grim and thoughtful. Did you feel targeted? He asked. Emily sighed, playing it up. Not in a physical way, no? But as a journalist? Absolutely. This is a warning to anyone who digs too deep. Karoline rolled her eyes and muted the screen. Targeted? Emily had practically begged for that moment. But the story was spreading. Clips of her exit were all over, chopped up and captioned with big, bold words like press under attack. Karoline's aides huddled in the hall, watching a different TV. Matt called her over. You've got to see this, he said, pointing at the screen. It was a friendly channel, one that usually backed her up. The host was replaying the full video, pausing every few seconds. Look at this, he said, freezing on Emily cutting Karoline off. She doesn't stop. This isn't about answers. It's about making noise. A guest chimed in, nodding. She set this up. Push until they push back, then cry foul. Classic move. The host grinned at the camera. Karoline didn't kill the press. She stopped a circus. Karoline crossed her arms, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. At least someone saw it her way. But she knew the split was real. Out there, online and on air, two camps were digging in. One side hailed her as a pro who wouldn't bend. The other painted her as a bully shutting down free voices. Matt glanced at her. This is going to drag on all week, he said. She nodded. Yeah, but at least people can see what really happened. The story wouldn't quit. For days, it bounced around news shows, podcasts, social media rants. People argued over every detail. Memes popped up everywhere, some poking fun at Emily's dramatic walkout, others showing Karoline as a cold enforcer. It was a mess, but it wasn't slowing down. Karoline scrolled her phone, skimming the chaos. She'd expected a fight, but this was a wildfire. Then something caught her eye. A clip from a late-night panel popped up. An older journalist, one she actually liked, was talking. "Let's be real," he said, leaning into the mic. This wasn't about finding truth. Emily wanted a viral hit, and she got it. She asked, got an answer, didn't like it, kept going, not for info, but for a scene. Then she ran to the cameras playing victim. That's not news. That's a script. The host raised an eyebrow. So Karoline was in the right? The guy shrugged. I'm saying we've got to call it what it is. Karoline let out a slow breath. Finally, someone nailed it. But she wasn't naive. The damage was done. The people who wanted her as the bad guy weren't budging. The ones in her corner? They'd already moved on, waiting for the next big clash. Sarah poked her head in. Interview request, big one. You in? Karoline shook her head fast. Nope. I'm not feeding this beast anymore. Sarah blinked. You sure? It's a chance to Karoline cut her off. The video's out there. People can watch it and think for themselves. I'm done talking. Sarah nodded and backed off. Karoline grabbed her phone, the notifications still rolling in. This would fade eventually, it always did. But something bigger was brewing, and she could feel it in her gut. Karoline knew this wasn't just a one-day mess. It was a sign of something deeper. The buzz outside her office window grew louder every hour. Reporters camped out on the sidewalk, their cameras pointed up, hungry for her next move. Inside, her team scrambled, flipping through news feeds and tracking the storm online. Sarah glanced up from her phone. It's splitting hard out there, she said. Some say you handled it like a champ. Others? They're calling it a slap to free speech. Karoline smirked, shaking her head. A slap to free speech? For telling one reporter to follow the rules? Sarah shrugged, her eyes back on the screen. Truth's not the point anymore. It's all about the headlines. Matt chimed in, holding up his phone. Emily's doubling down. She just dropped a full post, says she was silenced for asking what matters. People are eating it up. Karoline took a deep breath and grabbed Matt's phone. She read Emily's words out loud, her voice dry. Today, I was shut out for doing my job. This team talks big about openness, but when the heat's on, they lock the door. Every American should worry. She handed the phone back, scoffing. No word about how she turned it into her own stage. Shocker. Matt nodded. She's spinning it gold, TV slots all week. The TV in the corner flickered to a news segment. A reporter outside her building waved a mic. Karoline Leavitt's move is splitting opinions, hero to some, villain to others. Karoline watched, her fingers tapping the desk. She could fight back, call another briefing, set it straight. But that'd just keep the cycle spinning. Emily wanted airtime, and Karoline wasn't about to give her more. Sarah looked over. So what now? Karoline thought for a second, her eyes drifting to the chaos outside. One last push, she said. Put out a statement. Keep it short. Matt raised an eyebrow. What's it gonna say? Karoline smiled, small but sharp. For words, watch the full clip. Sarah grinned. That's it. Karoline nodded. That's enough. Let them see it and decide. Matt typed it up fast, and the statement went live. Watch the full clip. No extras, no excuses, just a nudge to look at the truth. Karoline leaned back, watching the street below. The news vans kept coming, but she felt steady. This wasn't about winning every mind. It was about putting the real story out there. Emily could talk all she wanted. The video didn't lie. Days later, the noise still hadn't died. Talk shows replayed the clash, pundits yelled over each other, and the internet churned out takes, some wild, some spot on. Karoline sat in her office, flipping through channels. One caught her ear. A guy she respected, a news vet, was speaking. This wasn't journalism, he said, his voice gruff. Emily chased a moment, not a story. She got her answer, pushed for a fight, then played the martyr. We've got to do better. Karoline nodded to herself. That was it, the heart of the mess. But she wasn't holding her breath for everyone to agree. The split was locked in. Her fans cheered, her critics fumed. The storm would fade, like they always do, but it left a mark. She turned off the TV and stood up. Time to move on, bigger fights were waiting. Before she left the room, she glanced at her phone one last time. Notifications piled up, love, hate, everything in between. She locked the screen and walked out. This was bigger than one press room brawl. It was about how stories get warped, how clicks beat out facts, how the game's changed. And that's where you come in. What do you think? Was Karoline right to shut it down, or did Emily have a point? Drop your take in the comments below. Let's keep this going. This whole clash, it's a peek into something messy, how news isn't always news anymore. It's a tug-of-war between truth and noise. Karoline stood her ground, Emily grabbed the mic, and we're left picking sides. So tell us, where do you land? Hit that comment button and share your thoughts.